Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Coffee Talk! So, today we're talking about doppelgangers and celebrity replacement theory. So, what is this exactly? Well, I think a lot of you have heard of the 27 Club, a conspiracy theory that rock stars sign agreements, deals with the devil, to fake their own deaths at the age of 27 so they can be young rock stars forever. And what they basically do is they fake their death so that the catalog of work that they create up until their 27th birthday is worth a lot more. We know that whether it's painting or music, when an artist passes away, the catalog of work becomes more valuable. And so, who are some of the members of the 27 Club? Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Mama Cass, and the list goes on. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. And one of the things they all have in common is that the person who fakes their own death then disappears. Right? Elvis was believed to have faked his own death and became a preacher later in life. And that's very different than this other theory we're talking about. This theory is about replacement. It's the same idea that the famous person wants to disappear, and so they don't fake their own death. They just find a replacement that looks enough like them that they can train them to impersonate them for the rest of their life. And it's a bit of a story of trading places. And so, who are some of the people they believed happened that this replacement concept happened to? This can be because somebody wants to disappear, but this could also be a result of an untimely death. So, part of the replacement doppelganger theory is that if a star who's, you know, talent and recognition and fame, their celebrity status, makes them a hot commodity, and the loss of such a person would cause a great loss of finances to the people in charge. So they basically find somebody who looks like them and gets them to impersonate this person for the rest of their life and take over their career. And what are some of the famous ones? Well, I guess probably one of the most well-known ones is Avril Lavigne. People claim that the real Avril Lavigne, early on after the release of her first record and the establishment of her stardom, died in a car wreck, and that somebody took over her place. People claim that she's not the same size of person she was, that she's not the same height that she was, that she looks very different. They claim that her music suddenly changed. They claim that her personality suddenly changed. And so there's a growing movement of people who think the current Avril Lavigne is not the original Avril Lavigne. And the most famous version of this story is from the Beatles. A lot of people believe that Paul McCartney died in an accident, in an auto accident early on in his career, and that the Beatles, along with the record company, made a decision to replace him. And they replaced him with a lesser known English musician, singer, who looked enough like Paul McCartney and sounded enough like Paul McCartney that they could use him to replace Paul McCartney and keep the Beatles going. And they claim, the people that push this theory, claim that Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band record, the Sergeant Pepper record, is filled with clues and some outright confessions by the other Beatles that this is in fact what happened. They claim that you can play some Beatle records backwards and you will hear Paul is dead when you play them backwards. They claim that the Sergeant Pepper's record artwork contains all of these clues to Paul McCartney having passed away and been replaced by a look-alike. And there's even the famous photo where they're crossing the street in unison, and some people have a theory that there's a reason why Paul McCartney is out of step with the other three Beatles in that photograph. So that's another one of those, and I'm sure that many of you have heard of these, but I want to kind of really lay the groundwork for how many of these stories there are. Michael Jackson is another replacement theory. They claim that Michael Jackson was horribly burned in an accident that happened while he was filming a Pepsi commercial. that his hair caught on fire. This is public record because of the pyrotechnics being used. The product, the gel in his hair caught on fire, caught his whole head on fire. This is true. Now, the official story is that they put the fire out and he had minor burns that he quickly recovered from. The conspiracy theorist story, the replacement theory story, is that he was horribly burned and they found replacements plural for him. That one of the reasons why Michael Jackson's appearance changed so much is not because of the cover story of kind of botched plastic surgery or extreme plastic surgery that changes appearance, but that's just a cover story to cover up for the fact that there were multiple Michael Jackson, that almost every record had a different performer on the record. And even one theory claims that Michael Jackson, although horribly burned, was still able to sing. And it's his actual vocal on every Michael Jackson record. And the people we see representing Michael Jackson in the music videos and on live performance and interviews are actually other people who are who have taken on the identity of Michael Jackson. One of the most current replacement theories is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle, at the peak of his career, that deserves its own video because there's a lot of Illuminati stuff going on there. We do know that Dave Chappelle clashed with the powers that be over the control of his career. This is fact. That he then fled to Africa to get away from it all and to I don't know, rediscover himself. When Dave Chappelle returns many years later, people that knew him, even trying to remember his name, but he played Goat Boy. He's making the rounds a lot. He was from SNL. I forget his name right now, but he said recently that the man that came back from Africa was not his friend Dave Chappelle, but someone else. And so it appears that they might have done something to Dave Chappelle, and then years later brought back a Dave Chappelle lookalike. Of course, I think that one is the hardest to believe, except for those comedians who kind of, you know, with a little bit of a side eye will say, it's not really the same guy I remember. There's even Kanye West is another person they claim has been cloned or replaced. And they claim that he, in fact, is even not the same height as his previous version of himself. And so this is something that's going throughout the entertainment industry for really honestly for decades is this theory. One that I find really interesting is when a person either fakes his own death or gets a replacement person, and then he has the original artist has plastic surgery, changes his appearance, and then reinvents himself as something else, like Elvis becoming a preacher, for instance. But I find the one that Jimi Hendrix faked his death just to reemerge later as the actor Morgan Freeman. Dun dun dun. I will say there's a lot of similarities in appearance between Morgan Freeman and Jimi Hendrix. So, and also Morgan Freeman's career kind of takes off just shortly after Jimi Hendrix, dies of mysterious causes. So, but where does this come from? Where does this idea come from? Is there any basis in fact? Is this just fan fiction made up to cope with the loss of a famous person? Is this just for fans to be able to better deal with changes that everyone goes through as they mature? In the case of Dave Chappelle, he matured, became an older man. He looks different than he did then, because so do I, right? So do you. Look different than you used to be. Many people think that the Avril Lavigne thing is just to help fans deal with the fact that when Avril Lavigne got famous, she sold out to pop music, quit being such a hard rocker, changed her style, her appearance, and her attitude to fit in. And they make this story up to explain that away because they can't see people capable of that kind of change. And the thing is, though, this is really a much older story than rock and roll and movie stars. We do know that down through time, they've always used doubles to stand in the place of world leaders and protect them from assassination attempts, or just to get a lookalike to take care of some of the busy work so they can deal with the bigger issues, right? Just to take some work off of their plate. Many people believe, and this is kind of a conspiracy theory, that Putin has two or three different people, and some of the interviews you see are of Vladimir Putin. Some of the interviews you see are of his double. And of course, I honestly think this is just Vladimir Putin losing weight and putting on weight, getting out of shape, getting back into shape. You know, like you might think there's more than one Sage Wanderer because I look so different, and depending on which era of this channel you look at, and it mainly has to do with weight loss and hair length and facial hair and all of that. But this story goes back even further. You know, there is the belief that Adolf Hitler had many doppelgangers, many lookalikes, because his life was always in danger, and that most of the time he didn't appear in public. He stayed in his bunker, protected by his bodyguards, and he sent out other people, doppelgangers, to fill in for him and to be make his public appearances. Don't, or don't, depending on what you prefer. This conspiracy theory goes even further, and it's of all of the ones I've talked about, this is the theory that I most believe. I don't need much coffee to buy into the Adolf Hitler conspiracy theory because there's been so much research on it, and there's been so many documentaries on it, and people have gone to great lengths to try and prove this. It's fly season again around here. As you can see, I'm sweating. It's kind of hot for coffee, but I drink coffee all year round. But yeah, the theory goes like this: that Adolf Hitler saw the fall of Berlin coming. He saw the Russians coming from the east and the Allies coming from the west, and knew that his time was numbered, and days were numbered, and just a matter of time till they got him. So he puts a doppelganger lookalike in the right place. He puts him in the bunker, right? They murder him and leave his body there, and the real Hitler slips out via submarine. He travels in a U-boat, because this is a really complex theory with a lot of facts behind it. So you might want to look this one up. It deserves kind of its own video. But there was an experimental submarine that was capable of traveling vast distances and staying underwater and undetected for weeks. And that was not the case for most submarines at the time of World War II. It's commonplace now with a nuclear submarine to stay down for months. But he got into this cutting-edge technology submarine and left Europe, went down to South America, and lived his life out in Argentina. So Argentina, where he went to, the place that he supposedly went to, is an interesting place in and of itself. Germans came there long before Hitler, and there are German enclaves in Argentina that the people have always spoke German. They don't speak any other language there, and the people there are all white of Germanic lineage, heritage, and that's a fact. That's not a conspiracy theory. There's German enclaves in Argentina to this day, where it's just basically Germany in another country, right? And that this was a pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler kind of place. And this is where Adolf Hitler escaped to via submarine to Argentina, where he lived out his whole life in the open, that he just simply changed his name. Everyone there in that area of Argentina knew he was Adolf Hitler. They all kept it quiet. He was allowed to marry, have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. He held office in the local town. There is very interesting video of Adolf Hitler attending town meetings and banquets and club meetings and just living a normal life. I know of at least one researcher who dedicated his life to this, that he went to Argentina, found the house this man lived in, found Nazi artifacts inside the house still in the abandoned home. And yeah, it's a very interesting theory that they didn't get the right Adolf Hitler. And the way the Allies handled it when they did find Hitler's body in the bunker is also, leads to problems in properly identifying Adolf Hitler. I will say this: there is one part of this story that's absolutely true. They had a hard time really getting a positive ID out of Adolf Hitler. Mainly it's because they found this body in the right place at the right time. And the problem is the GIs that found the body first weren't really the ones in charge. And they kind of saw his body as a war trophy, and they dragged him out in the street. And the body was already disfigured because of the self-inflicted gunshot wound, self-inflicted. And on top of that, the body got defiled by the various different people as it came through. And by the time the proper authorities got there to do the ID, the body was very hard to identify. And they mainly went off of the fact that it was the right size, right shape. They found it in the right place. It was wearing the right clothes and had the right documents on the body. But I believe that it's very possible that that was all a setup so that Adolf Hitler, the true villain of the 20th century, was able to escape justice and live his life out in relative peace and harmony in Argentina. Don't. So how far back does this go? Well, it's very interesting that this is also portrayed in movies. The movie Pure Country with George Strait. He plays a country star who's lost his way, who gets burned out, and he just disappears in the middle of a very important tour. And the tour promoters have a sold-out crowd, and their star doesn't show up. But there's a look-alike, a guy that kind of looks like their star that's in the band. And he knows the music, and he kind of wants to be a star himself, and he wants to be a solo artist anyway. So they make him up like George Strait's character, and they put the right clothes on him, and he goes out and performs as George Strait's character, which I think was called Dusty. He comes out and performs as Dusty. This is the movie Pure Country. And it would be very tempting for concert promoters to do that, especially as a one-off situation like in that movie, that you've got a sold-out crowd and your star doesn't show up. You just give them a close facsimile thereof. Don't. There's lots of movies that have this kind of trading places, doppelganger swap out. There was one about I think it was called Banana Republic, but it starred Richard Dreyfuss as a guy who was just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he looked just like the dictator of the country. And the dictator of the country dies or gets assassinated, and they hire Richard Dreyfuss to impersonate him. And it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek comedy of errors type of show. So this exists in fiction, probably, but before it really exists in real life in a lot of ways. And that leads me to The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride main character, played by Carrie Elwes. Anyway, the main character there plays the Dread Pirate Roberts. And he claimed in that the Dread Pirate Roberts was really multiple people. That one pirate, the first Dread Pirate Roberts, got rich, got tired of the lifestyle, and he just handed off the costume and the name and the ship and the crew over to somebody else in his group, and then they became the Dread Pirate Roberts. And this has been going on for decades. And that's part of the Princess Bride storyline. So I did a little research on this because in the back of my brain, I had recalled a documentary I'd seen at one time about a real pirate who actually did this, that there were many different pirates that operated under the same name, and it was that very case where they just handed it off to somebody else and they became the pirate character. And that's what they were basing this on in The Princess Bride. But when I did research on it this time, I couldn't find that pirate's name. And I did find that the Dread Pirate Roberts character was in The Princess Bride was actually based on a real pirate known as Black Bart, Bartholomew Roberts. And he was the most successful of all pirates if you count success as how many ships he seized, how many ships he took over. He took over more ships than any other pirate. But I couldn't find any reference on Wikipedia or anyplace else that was the pirate in question. So I kind of ran into a dead end on that. But there are stories of kings being replaced by doppelgangers. There's stories of emperors in Rome. This is a story that goes back to antiquity. So, are people being replaced either with their full cooperation or as a result of an accident or potentially against their will because they won't play ball, like Dave Chappelle? Do you think Dave Chappelle is a replacement? What about Kanye West? What about Avril Lavigne? What about Paul McCartney? I will say this, that the Paul McCartney that we know, the replacement Paul McCartney, is probably a better musician and singer than the original one. That I think my favorite part of the Beatles is Paul McCartney, and I'm a huge fan of Wings and his later work, and I just find Sir Paul McCartney a pretty decent dude and a fine musician. But, is Morgan Freeman really Jimi Hendrix? Has Morgan Freeman ever picked up a guitar in public? That's what I'd like to know. And is Morgan Freeman left-handed? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here. A lot of people don't need much information or real facts to put forth these videos about replacement theory on the internet. Some of them, like the Adolf Hitler conspiracy theory, is very well documented, very believable. And others are less believable. Avril Lavigne, maybe she just changed her style. You know, did Dave Chappelle just check out and then run out of money and come back and make a deal, or did he get replaced? It's a big mystery. But tell me what you think in the comments section below. Do you believe any of these replacement theories? Have you picked up on any clues that makes you think these people might have been replaced? And would it even be possible? I find the Michael Jackson one most believable because he looks so different from one record to the next. He could have been 5 different people. But I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this fun time. And leave your comments in the comments section. Don't forget to support this channel. Without support from my viewers, I won't exist because I don't take money from YouTube. I don't engage in commerce with YouTube, and all of my needs are being met by the viewers of this channel. So there's links in the description where you can make a contribution to the cause and keep these videos coming. And we'll see you next time on